MS Now's Will McDuffie is on the ground in Pelham Township, Pennsylvania. He's been speaking with farmers for us. Sam Stein is managing editor of The Bulwark and an MS Now contributor. And Jared Bernstein served as chair of President Biden's Council on Economic Advisors. Great to have all of you here. Sam, it was just last night the president said the war's basically already been won. What's your sense of the level of discontent between the president and his longtime supporters right now?
Well, I think there's a couple layers to consider here. One is if you look at all the public opinion polls, most Republicans, 95% of them, do support what's happening. And that includes more so the MAGA-identified supporters. At the same time, there are some luminaries in that movement, people like Joe Rogan, who is not truly MAGA, but did support Donald Trump in 2024. Certainly Steve Bannon, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, who have been outwardly critical of this war, who say that it is a strategic blunder, but more importantly, that it is a break with the promises that the president ran on, which was no foreign interventions, ending the wars abroad, specifically ending entanglements in the Middle East. And so if they are speaking out, and they are speaking out, there is a real danger for Trump that at some point he'll lose the narrative here among his followers, that these polls sort of show soft support, and that if things continue to go poorly, if oil stays high, if we see American casualties overseas, that crowd is going to start listening to the people who are not worried about speaking out against this war.
Well, let me ask you about that narrative, Jared, because gas prices obviously are top of mind for many consumers as they go up day after day after day. And today the president said, hey, actually, it's bringing money into America. And anyway, gas prices are going to go down very quickly. Is that the case for sure?
Absolutely not the case for sure. And the president, once again, is at great risk in dismissing the affordability concerns of most Americans, in this case, the price at the pump. But, Chris, it goes beyond that. I just noticed that the mortgage rate is back above 6%, and notably so. And this has to do with the fact that we're now looking at higher inflation, which means the Federal Reserve has a harder time cutting interest rates. Higher energy costs also bleed into higher grocery costs. So yes, gas at the pump is the most prominent affordability concern that's springing out of this. And as we talk, the price of oil is up again at $95 a barrel. Just today, it's up about $7.50. That's another 19 cents or so at the pump. So all of this is moving hard in the wrong direction in terms of affordability, and it's not just gas prices.
Do you think political risk in this that's real, or do you think that it goes away if indeed prices start to come down, Jared?
I don't think it goes away if prices start to come down because it was already there before prices went up. Trump was already on his back foot when it came to affordability, which he sort of dismissed every other day or so, and he's really had a hard time putting forth anything convincing to the American people on that issue. At the same time, he's made life a lot more expensive before the war with tariffs, with job cuts, with deportations. So he's already got a problem here, and he's exacerbated it for himself. Also, we should always remember that when it comes to oil and gas, there's this unfortunate rockets and feathers phenomena. The price takes the elevator up and the stairs down. So I'm afraid we're looking at higher prices for a bit here.
So, Will, you're in York County. Trump won that, I believe, in the last 3 elections. What are you hearing on the ground?
Well, Chris, farmers here are not just dealing with rising gas prices, but also rising fertilizer prices, because more than a third of globally traded fertilizer passes through the Strait of Hormuz. So this war has sunk supply, driven prices up, and it's affecting farms like this one in southeastern Pennsylvania. Mike Flinchbaugh, the 4th-generation owner here, uses nitrogen fertilizer on crops such as corn. Here's what he had to say when we spoke to him yesterday.
We're hearing quotes of prices being up since the war started about 15 to 25% over where they were before they started. It's going to affect our margins on our grain crops we grow, especially corn. At the current prices that we're hearing, maybe a 7 to 8 cents price increase in the cost of producing corn.
So, Chris, he's already thinking of contingency plans if these prices continue to stay high. And look, this couldn't come at a worse time. Spring planting season is right around the corner, Chris.
It is indeed. So, Sam, as you know, farmers have been a reliable part of Trump's base. He's taken some big steps to try to bring them relief. There was that $12 billion aid package to make, and then also making deregulation and long-term structural changes as well. But if he doesn't do something now to help with these high prices, is this just another part of his big supportive base that is in danger?
Yes, for sure. It's not just what's happening in Iran, although that is obviously contributing to these rising fuel costs. It's also happening with respect to immigration, where farmers are losing workers or can't find workers, specifically seasonal workers, and that is are hurting their bottom line as well. Now, the problem might not be that these farmers suddenly turn and support Democrats, right? It could be that they just get so disenchanted that they don't engage at all, and that's a real problem in the midterms. Remember, when Trump's not on the ballot, Republicans have not done particularly well. It's when he's on the ballot and he's bringing out all these people, that's when their party has done a lot better. And so it's farmers, but it's also people like, bringing it back to Joe Rogan, who his followers are not necessarily politically oriented. They certainly follow politics, but they're not engaged. They're not like watching, no offense, MS Now every day. They will be activated when they are told to be activated. And if they look around and they say, well, okay, well, the cost of gasoline is high. We have foreign entanglements, there's potential for American troops in the Middle East. And on top of that, these people I know who work in the farming industry are really suffering. They may just say, you know what, we're not going to vote. We're just not going to vote because we voted for something specific in 2024. It didn't come to fruition. What's the point of engaging now? Republicans stand to lose from that. Democrats stand to be fine.
So, Jared, there's a new Reuters poll out that 67% of people expect gas prices to get worse over the coming year, and that includes 44% of Republicans. The president's message is different, though. Here it is.
The market's holding up well. I figured we'd be hit a little bit, but we were hit probably less than I thought, and we'll be back on track in a pretty short while. Prices are coming down very substantially. Oil will be coming down. That's just a matter of war. That happens you can almost predict it. I would say it went up a little bit less than we thought. It's going to come down more than anybody understands.
Is that predictable in war and more than people understand it's going to come down?
No, I think the president is making a big mistake, and at some level an uncharacteristic one. He's generally thought of as a pretty good communicator. But when it comes to this issue of prices, cost of living, affordability, he's tried to do something that I know from personal experience is something you shouldn't try to do, which is try to talk Americans into believing that up is down, that prices are going down. When they drive down the street and twice a block they see a gas price that's up, literally 22% from where it was a month ago. People know that. They know which way is up, and you can't convince them otherwise. The more you try to do so, the more you lose credibility, starting to unfold the kind of political scenario that Sam, I thought, just took us through very, very thoroughly. The White House is trying a variety of interventions to help on the energy price. Today, they're talking about waiving the Jones Act, which we can talk about. But the only way to really bring down the price of oil and gas is to end the war. But they're in a quagmire already, as far as I can see. And even if this war were to end quickly, gas prices wouldn't revert quickly because of the rocket feathers phenomenon I mentioned earlier. So he's got real problems on this front, and he's in denial about them, and that's going to hurt him.